Good evening and welcome to Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Of prime interest tonight, the Pope and politics. Pope Francis takes rhetorical aim at Donald Trump, and Trump in turn takes issue with the Pope. Miranda Kahn chronicles the back and forth.
JD, yesterday the Pope raised some eyebrows when he celebrated Mass on the U.S.-Mexico border while being critical of both American immigration and economic policy. Now, earlier today, the Holy Father raised the hackles off Donald Trump when he criticized a presidential candidate during an airborne news conference upon his departure from Mexico. He said this: "A person who thinks only about building walls, wherever they may be, and not building bridges is not Christian. This is not in the gospel." When asked if American Catholics should vote for someone who shares Trump's views, the Pope said this: "What would I advise, to vote or not to vote? I would not get mixed up in that. I would only say this man is not a Christian if that is what he says." Donald Trump was quick to respond on the campaign trail in South Carolina, pledging to keep all Christians safe. He then continued by criticizing the Mexican government for giving the Pope what he calls a false impression of what's going on at our southern border.
No leader, especially a religious leader, should have the right to question another man's religion or faith, especially when they feed all sorts of false information into him. They're using the Pope as a pawn, and they should be ashamed of themselves. That's the Mexican government. They should be ashamed of themselves for doing so, especially when so many lives are involved and when illegal immigration is so rampant and so dangerous and so bad for the United States. Okay? Period. That's it. Period.
Actually, there's more of an exclamation point added to this presidential campaign, with the spectacle of the Vatican being highly critical of the views shared by a Republican frontrunner. But of course, this adds a question mark concerning the outcome of Saturday's South Carolina primary. JD, back to you.
Thanks, Miranda. For more on this story, we're pleased to be joined by Katrina Pierson. Katrina is the national spokesperson for the Donald Trump campaign, and she's Skyping in tonight from Dallas. Katrina, we just heard Donald's reaction on the campaign trail, and it seemed as if he was initially surprised by the comments from the Pope. In your opinion, should a religious leader get involved in American politics, or for that matter, politics anywhere around the world?
No, not at all. I think a lot of people were surprised that the Pope made the comments that he made, particularly that he hasn't even met with Donald Trump and discussed some of these issues. And so to be questioning his faith right now really was a surprise to a lot of people, particularly with regards to the border wall and immigration. So the Pope actually inferred that all these people that support building a border wall to secure their country weren't actually Christian. So I think a lot of people were surprised by that.
Well, let me ask you this, Katrina, because there is a big primary Saturday night in South Carolina. What impact will the papal criticism and Donald Trump's response have on the voting in South Carolina and beyond?
Well, I think overwhelmingly Republican primary voters support getting immigration under control. They support stopping illegal immigration and building a border wall. So I really don't think it's going to have any impact. But what it did do is it highlighted that Donald Trump is the strongest when it comes to illegal immigration and protecting this country, securing the southern border, and doing what's right for Americans. I mean, even the Vatican has a wall built around it. So I think a lot of people at first were very confused, but for others, it really solidified his position as the leader when it comes to immigration.
Just a few minutes ago, Katrina, you mentioned the fact that the Pope and Mr. Trump have not sat down together. Do you expect Mr. Trump to seek an audience with the Pope?
I'm not so sure that he'd be requesting it, but I do think if you are a religious leader and you're going to question or call into question someone's faith, you probably should have sat with them and asked them questions. I mean, we have seen that happen with someone like Jerry Falwell Jr., who knows Mr. Trump well, who supports him in this campaign and speaks very highly of Mr. Trump's faith. So I don't see that happening anytime soon. But again, I think what this has done is solidify Donald Trump as the leader when it comes to immigration and border security.
Katrina, obviously Mr. Trump responded to the papal criticism on the campaign trail in South Carolina. He took time out to remind the pontiff that the policies he intends to enact as president will keep us all safe, especially concerning the terror threat from ISIS. Let's look and listen.
If and when the Vatican is attacked by ISIS, which, as everyone knows, is ISIS's ultimate trophy, I can promise you that the Pope would have only wished and prayed that Donald Trump would have been president. Because it's true. It's true.
Your reaction to what Donald Trump had to say earlier?
Well, I think, JD, we can all go back to when Mr. Trump entered this race, specifically talking about immigration, ISIS, Muslim refugees, Syrian refugees. And he has been the most outspoken on this because he will be the strongest when it comes to building up the military and stomping out ISIS. We have Christians being beheaded all over the world. And a lot of the people, including the Pope, are talking about climate change. So I think there's something to be said that, we not only do we have Barack Obama, but now we have the Pope, two people that are really pushing taking in Muslim refugees, pushing not having a border wall, having open borders, essentially, both taking on Mr. Trump, which I believe is a clear indicator that this is not the man they want as the Republican GOP nominee, because we see nationally Mr. Trump has all the traction.
Katrina, forgive me, but I guess this almost falls under the realm of confession time, not spiritually, but politically. There you are as the spokesman for the Trump campaign, and it seems that your candidate always ends up as the center of conversation and the center of controversy. Do you believe this is a net positive, again, to have Mr. Trump at the center of yet another controversy, this time involving the Holy Father of the Roman Catholic Church?
I do consider this a net positive, but just because of the positions that Mr. Trump has taken, which has kept him at the top of the polls on the Republican primary, mainly with regards to security, immigration. Again, all of these things are so important. We will not be able to achieve anything unless we deal with illegal immigration, border security, because everything is beholden upon that. As Mr. Trump says, without borders, we don't have a nation. And we see right now with all these other politicians who are bought and paid for by global banks and transnational corporations, they're not going to do what needs to be done for the American people. They're going to continue to push the same agenda that we've had, like these horrible trade deals, which are worse than NAFTA, by the way, and that eliminated a third of the manufacturing jobs in South Carolina. We are talking about very serious policies. Mr. Trump has his thumb on the heartbeat of Americans, which is why he has so much support from a broad spectrum on a Republican side that we have not seen in a very long time.
Katrina, about a minute 15 remains. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring this up. Bill Donahue of the Catholic League is upset and demanding an apology for a tweet in which he says, "You mock the Catholic Church." The tweet reportedly reads, "Just saw a commercial from the Catholic Church stating that the Catholic Church was started by Jesus." I bet they believe that too. Hashtag sad. That's since been taken down, but A, did you write it? And B, will you apologize for it?
Well, no, but I can tell you that that was during a time when I was actually fighting alongside Catholics against Twitter trolls going against Catholics. There was a lot of sarcasm going on there. When you're an activist, that's what you do when you fight back against liberals who are attacking Christians. So if they want to pull tweets out of context, have at it. No one's even asked about the context of that tweet, but I will tell you that
I want to get this straight. Let me drill down here. The context is this was not in reference to the recent dust-up between the Pope and Mr. Trump.
Absolutely not. This was from 2012 when I was fighting alongside Catholics, supporting Catholic presidential candidates against Catholic Twitter trolls. But this is what happens in politics. It's silly season. They pull things out of context and try to create their own narrative, JD.
Katrina Pierson, very busy in lieu of what's happened in the Trump campaign. We appreciate you checking in on behalf of your candidate tonight from Dallas.
Absolutely. Thanks. Great to be here.